right, so glad to get the win. Get to 7-2. Which is good, not great, and that's kind of where we are. We really struggle to take the next step. The first half was great. 24-0 in the first half, whatever, 6 sacks or something at halftime, was awesome. And unfortunately, tried to get them up the same way we did for the game, to start the game in the second half, and we didn't do that. And really played a bad second half, lost 14-3. Now that's always challenging when the game goes so well at halftime, 24-0 versus a team that, they don't think of as an SEC team. And, you loosen up, and that's what we did. We didn't tackle as well. They have a very elite player, that we contained in the first half and did in the second half. It was kind of, almost like the Arkansas game reversed, where we played, really good on one side and not on the other. And, 9 sacks is awesome, 3 interceptions. Now, we didn't play as well as we'd like, but the play counts got lopsided 81-55 because we're not making third downs on offense, which is obviously an issue. 2 of 9 versus them is, putting our defense back out on the field a lot. So, Matt was courageous, played pretty well. It was good to see 2 backup receivers and Plumlee and Danis Jackson go over 100 yards and make some plays, which was really good to see. And, it's very human nature to let up. The first run goes for 70 and it's 24-0 at half. And unfortunately, we gave into that.
All right, questions? Let's get the microphone up front. Hey, you can stay right there.
Jerian obviously only had 3 carries last week. Second play of the game, he breaks that one open. Just how important was it for him to kind of have early success today?
Yeah, that was great. And probably like you guys thought, we were going to run the ball a lot better. After that, I thought we were going to run the ball really well coming into the game, just looking at matchups and things. They had played really good statistical defense all year long. People had not had a lot of points and yards against them. So I thought we would. And very surprised after that run how our inability to, run the ball. Now Matt's part of that because obviously he can't run at all, so you can't run the same type of runs that you normally run, just like his one to Plumlee at the end he normally would have pulled. But penalties just really not smooth on offense in the second half. It's hard to be really excited, but I guess we're 7-2, so.
You brought up Danis. Just seemed like he was very well involved in the game plan, and for him to come back after that early drop and have the game he did, just how impressed were you with the way he kind of stuck in there?
It was huge. Probably, Plumlee and he are probably the stories of the game offensively, but probably even more him because he had, missed a lot of opportunities, in games or practice and not made, plays that we needed him to make. And so for him to do that today was huge. And, he had the one in Tennessee, but, he was wide open. Here he made some competitive plays, which is what we've been waiting on for him to do because he's very talented.
Just obviously in the second half, they started running the ball a lot more to try and take the pass rush out of the game. How did their adjustment kind of change what you guys were doing defensively?
Well, as usual, we were in a lot of 3-man rush and spying him. And, and there were some long yardage situations. They were in 1st and 30, 1st and 20, and we gave up some really explosive runs, in those situations, trying to play safe. So, we got a lot of improvement to do. I thought we wore down in the second half again because we're not staying on the field on offense. The defense is out there too many plays, and you could see that especially with Chance. Look how he was able to make those plays. And the quarterback usually never wears down. So a running quarterback is always an issue in the second half of the game. Like, instead of the national championship the year when, Jalen Hurts, Georgia, like everyone else is starting to get tired, but the quarterback hasn't run very much. So, that happened in the game. You're playing all these snaps running around, and the quarterback half the time, is handing off or just throwing in rhythm. So that can always be an issue late in the game.
You've talked all year about wanting to play 4 complete quarters, wanting to finish games. How does a team start doing that?
I don't know. You got the answer? I don't.
That's why I'm asking.
I really thought it was going to happen. I felt good about the week of practice. I felt good about our, even though we still have all these injuries on offense. I really felt, in the way the game went in the first half, I felt it was going to be that complete game, 48-7 or something. And it was headed that direction. And, we got out of rhythm, got some penalties on offense, and didn't make some plays, a third down drop, and all of a sudden, we're in a game.
Sam's up to 10.5 sacks this year. It's the most for an Ole Miss player in the modern era. Just what has his consistency and presence meant for this defense this season?
I think it says what an elite player he is, because we're in 3-man rush. So I don't keep that stat. Find out what's the nation leader when you're a 3-man rush team, because it's a lot harder. You're getting doubled all the time. So maybe there's an analytic on that. But that to me shows how special Sam is. If you set the school record with 3 regular season games to go and you're a 3-man rush, says a lot.
We'll take questions up top.
Lane, I know it was obviously just recently, so you probably don't know too much, but do you have any info on Sam, if he's banged up or not, and how's he doing?
Well, the one that looked really bad, he went back in, so I don't know anything more than that.
And staying on the defense, A.J. Finley made a couple nice plays today. How have you seen him kind of progress through the whole season, basically, and also in practice that in ways that we kind of maybe haven't seen?
Well, he was hurt early in the year, I think second or third game, and was struggling, I think, with an ankle, and you could tell that out there. So he's healthy now and playing better. And in general, we're playing better on defense, and our secondaries, our safeties are playing better and not giving up as many explosive plays.
Coach, how do you combat those second halves and, wanting to finish better? Maybe human nature to be up, as you mentioned, to let off. I guess at this point in the year, as a coaching staff, how do you just implore to, the kids that, hey, we got to finish no matter what the score is?
Well, like I said, we try. I don't think there's a magic potion. I'm not making an excuse. If you're fully healthy, it helps because you got more players, like on offense. All those receivers are out there, and then these guys are rotating through, and you got, more energy at the end of games because your play counts are lower versus, playing every snap. So that helps too. And when the quarterback can't move very well, think about throughout the season, there's a lot of third downs he's making on his own. Things are broke down. We get beat up front, and he scrambles to make somewhere. Today he can't do that. So that's not a great third down combination when basically your top 3 receivers are out and your quarterback can't run anymore.
Lane, you mentioned how you weren't too excited, but you're 7-2. But at the same time, with all the injuries y'all have on offense, Matt still threw for over 300 yards. You established a lot on the ground game. Maybe in the second half, you didn't score as many points as you wanted to, but still offensively put up some numbers and yards. What does it kind of say about these guys when you have all these injuries and you're still able to put up numbers like you did?
Well, it says we have a very elite quarterback, that did not practice the entire week. Until yesterday did a few things. So, that's not easy to do and still be accurate like he was with the ball. And like I talked to him late in the week, there's a lot of quarterbacks wouldn't play, especially nowadays, with everybody in their ear saying you're already a first-round pick. Don't get injured worse. You don't need to play in this game. And that's kind of the age we're in. Most of the kids don't play nowadays. So the fact that he didn't even question that. He's like, I'm not letting this team down. I'm playing no matter what. Says a lot about him.
All right, anything else for Coach?
Coach, obviously, Coach, obviously you have a relationship with Coach Freeze. What was your message to him at the end of the game when y'all met at midfield?
Well, I don't know him all that well. I've met him a few times. My brother worked here with him. Just said good luck, and his defense did a great job, and his quarterback played really well. So, good luck.